Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, and you're all very welcome to the first time for the BIM gathering that we are doing the sponsored demo week, and we're doing it virtually. We're delighted to have 8 platinum sponsors and 2, sorry, it might be 9 platinum sponsors, sorry, and 2 gold sponsors. So we have presentations every day this week. Some days there are 2 presentations, and they are taking place for half an hour length each. I just wanted to let you have a quick overview here for anyone who hasn't booked their tickets for the BIM gathering so far. We have group ticket offerings where you get 3 tickets for the price of 2 or 5 tickets for the price of 3. If you don't want to pay online, you can contact Samantha. She'd be delighted to hear from you, swhitby@cita.ie, if you want an invoice for any of your tickets. So for this week, the 6th to the 10th, there you'll see the full lineup of speakers. So we've Diatec, Procore, Autodesk, Revit, Solibri, RIB, Colin, and Vectorworks. And they've all got some great presentations for us to run through. And for today, we have Jonathan Reinhardt. You're very welcome, Jonathan, from Diatec. And Jonathan is going to be speaking about optimizing remote working with Autodesk Construction Cloud. So I'll stop sharing this now, Jonathan, and I'll hand over to you, unless Alan would like to say a few words.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Jonathan. Thanks for your continued support. This is the 5th, I suppose, gathering that CitA have organised. And this, I suppose, this week is really a thank you to the sponsors, and to give them maybe a little bit more time to maybe, explain the content of their offering, as opposed to being in a kind of a constrained program, a very busy program that we'll have between the 21st and the 23rd. So I do hope that all of you are keeping well, and that you're looking to, I suppose, return to your various points of work location. But as I say, if you could, we'd appreciate the support for you to attend the event in a few weeks' time, and look forward to hearing what your presentation today, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Alan. Mm-hmm. Good afternoon, everybody, and I probably know a couple of you on the line already. I've been involved with CitA probably for the last 4 or 5 years anyway, and more recently, I suppose, I'm dedicated to Diatec now as well since July as a technical consultant. So my background, just briefly, is as a chartered architectural technologist. I've worked and studied in BIM management as well, and studied architectural technology originally, and I've worked in the industry since about 2005. In both the UK and Australia and Ireland as well. So I'm just going to jump into the agenda, and I'll try get through this as quick as possible. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. There will be a couple of minutes at the end for Q&A, but obviously feel free to drop me an email or contact Diatec if you have any further questions based on what I'm going to run through today. And I'm going to try to keep it as relevant as possible to, perhaps current processes that you're using in your business or using in your design workflows. And I'm going to keep it as relevant to that as possible, rather than just showing you a piece of software. And then any questions you have based on that, again, save until the end, or drop myself or someone in Diatec team an email. So I'm going to run through Autodesk Docs as part of the AEC collection briefly, just to make people aware. If you have an AEC collection, i.e. if you have Revit and the suite of products that includes, you more than likely have access to the AEC collection. And a lot of people actually don't realize that they have access to that. And I'm going to show you how to find that in your Autodesk account. And then I'm going to move into Autodesk Bim Collaborate Pro. And essentially that's Autodesk Docs at the bottom of it as your kind of data and file storage there. But what Bim Collaborate Pro gives you is that access from inside Revit, also from inside Navisworks as well, to work with your model and to synchronize models from a Revit to a Revit users. But you can also integrate, which I won't cover today, but you can integrate with Civil 3D and Plant 3D as part of Bim Collaborate Pro today. And I'll hope to try to explain those separate items to you. And then some of the workflows or processes I'll look at are using something like the Revit Issues plugin, which is free to use as long as you have access to an Autodesk Construction Cloud project. And there's also a Navisworks plugin as well that I want to make you aware of that can give you quite a streamlined workflow from you perhaps as a Revit user and maybe working with your BIM coordinator, or if there's another BIM coordinator third party on the project, you could also integrate with them using this issues plugin as well, and that's available to you if you use Autodesk Construction Cloud. So just to explain, I know there's a lot of some rebranding has gone on in kind of the last 10 or 12 months from Autodesk. So I'll explain that briefly as well, just to make it a bit clearer. So there is something called Autodesk Bim Collaborate. And essentially what Bim Collaborate is, it includes Docs. So that's your Autodesk Docs at the bottom. It includes design collaboration. It includes model coordination. But what it doesn't include is that Revit work sharing. So if you're, for example, using Bim Collaborate, it doesn't include the Revit work sharing connection. So that's the main difference between it, you can see there. And that's the same for Plant 3D and the same for the Civil 3D integration as well. So you've got Docs, design collaboration and model coordination. And then as part of the Pro package, what you actually get is the Revit Cloud work sharing add-on for that as well. So what the Pro, I suppose, version gives you is that kind of that view of your complete project. So it's a timeline view of when models were shared, for example, and this is all accessible in your web browser. And this is as part of that BIM Collaborate Pro package. This is accessible in your web browser through your Autodesk Construction Cloud, and it basically gives you what's called the swim lane view. So that will tell you when each team or team member shared a model. So for example, that could be the interior design team. You can see the date and time that they last shared a model or a package. So a package can actually contain a model, CAD files, specification sheets, room data sheets, Excel files, Word files. All of that can be part of a package, and that also appears in your timeline. It's not just essentially for drawing or model information or 3D models. It's a lot more than that as well. Also integrates with Microsoft Office as well. There's a 365 integration as well. You can actually edit documents within the web browser from inside your Autodesk Construction Cloud as well. You can create things like markups and add comments if you want. And the reason I say if you want, you can just use design collaboration just to share models and just to create that Revit connection if you want. But you can do a lot more with it by creating things like issues, and that'll be what I'll touch on today once I kind of jump into the demonstration itself. You can track issues through the cloud, basically. You know, two of you working in separate locations, perhaps, you know, one in Dublin, one in Cork or London, or you know, across the globe. Someone can drop a pin on a model essentially, and somebody can pull that pin down or that push pin into Navisworks and into Revit as well, using those issues plugins that I mentioned as well, and I'll show you where to find those. The coordination side of it, so I know I mentioned BIM Collaborate Pro and BIM Collaborate include a module called Model Coordination. Essentially what that is, it's Navisworks in the cloud. It's just a lighter version of it, if you think of it that way. Its prime function is to perform clash detection. But I suppose the great thing about it is that the clash detection is actually automatic. You don't need to run a clash detective. And this would be used alongside Navisworks in industry, and that's what a lot of our customers are using at the moment. They'll still use Navisworks for the kind of heavy lifting, clash detection, quantification, and that type of task. But they'll use model coordination as part of their BIM Collaborate Pro. They'll use that just to capture clash detection, maybe to do an internal check of their own model, perhaps before they publish it to the rest of the design team, for example. And that gives you a visual screen or a visual graphic of, okay, we've got as we can see here on the right, we've got a structural, or we've got a duct running through a wall, and the items highlight in a different color. So it's telling you this is going to clash, i.e. this means it's not going to happen on site. And that's the biggest thing that we're doing here. We're avoiding clashes and physical clashes that occur on site by performing something like this. And I'll show you some of those workflows as well. I suppose some other features of Docs, Autodesk Docs, just at a basic level, is the versioning. If you upload a new file, it automatically gives it a new version. And the benefit of that is that you can actually compare version 5 to version 10 and so on and so forth. And it automatically versions them as well. So you can overlay a PDF file and it will highlight in a different color. You can overlay a CAD file, DWG, highlight in a different color, and a Revit file as well, and lots of other types of file formats. You can overlay them and they'll actually, the change will appear in a different color. And to me, like from a practical standpoint, you know, you're not looking for changes in the model. The changes are appearing for you. You're not seeing, okay, has this door actually moved, and referring back to previous drawings. that were emailed or either, you know, saved on a server, the comparison tool is extremely powerful in my opinion, and it's very widely used, I have to say, by a lot of our customers and Autodesk customers as well. The issue management is quite a key thing across Autodesk Construction Cloud. The reason for that is because when you create something called an issue, so an issue can be considered as a markup, a type of markup. When you drop a pin onto a drawing, you can assign that to an individual. That individual will then get a notification, and you can manage the status of that issue. So is it still open? Has it been closed? Is there a deadline on it? Is it gone past that deadline for it to be addressed? And that can be a design issue. It can be on-site issues as well, clashes on site perhaps, compliance issues, BCAR issues, for example. And you can do more with those on site using the build module. We won't cover that today, but issues, what I suppose the clearest thing I should say is that issues sit across the entire platform. So if you create an issue at design stage in an architect's office, an engineering office, that issue could potentially be viewed on site as well to see if it was actually addressed, if an error made it to site, for example. So that complete audit trail is there from the design stage right up to the even up to the construction stage, and then even to the handover stage as well. You can hand over all those closed off issues and see what issues made it to site, for example. So you can control documents, complete folder permissions. I won't go in too deep into that, but you can do that. And you can also perform something called document approvals. So this is essentially moving a file or a drawing or a model or a specification document, moving this through the platform of Autodesk Construction Cloud from Autodesk Docs, and just having it approved by an individual. Once it gets approved by that particular person or multiple people within the company, the file then gets moved, or sorry, it actually gets copied into another folder. So that could be potentially how I like to show that this works, is by moving something perhaps from your work in progress area into your shared area. And all that basic functionality is available just in Docs as well. And you can also perform issue management on that type of approval workflow as well. So that's just, I suppose, some of the highline stuff that I wanted to show to you today, what Autodesk Docs essentially does. And I appreciate there's probably some people on the call that are probably experienced in Docs and experienced using Bim Collaborate Pro. But I kind of, hopefully I can address both parties or attendees today. So just to make you aware, if you have an AEC collection, so that's if you have Revit and AutoCAD and Navisworks in that collection, in your manage Autodesk panel, you may not have access to this, but your contract manager or your BIM manager should. A lot of people don't realize that as of recently, the AEC collection actually includes Autodesk Docs. And Autodesk Docs is I suppose it's the baseline of Autodesk Construction Cloud. And the way you're going to find out if you have it, and I recommend people do this afternoon if you're not using it already, go into your AEC collection or get your contract manager to do it, and you'll see that it has Docs for AEC collection available under there. And you basically just access that now from inside that panel, and then that's going to bring you into Autodesk Docs. So that was added by Autodesk this year into the AEC collection. It was a pretty, it was a pretty big move forward, because it means you can work on files and you can save them directly into Autodesk Docs. So Autodesk Docs is accessible inside your web browser. You'll see the address to access it is accautodesk.com. I will mention that BIM 360 still exists as it's a parallel platform that still exists. You can still access projects in both platforms by the same login. I won't go into it in detail today because I'm obviously conscious of time, but just be aware that you can access projects on both BIM 360 and ACC Autodesk, providing you have that correct license level, and that's licenses as of this year anyway. As far as I'm aware, just I will need to clarify that, will include access to Docs and to BIM 360 as well, so just keep that in mind. So with your Docs license for AEC collection, so if you're using it, you only need the AEC collection. What it will give you is something called the Docs module. So this is a drop down here. Basically what you can do is just go into your Docs module and you can save lots of different files in here. And like what we looked at in the PowerPoint there, you can save lots of different files. That's Word files, CAD files and Revit files, and there's lots of different file formats that you can access in there as well. What you also get as part of Docs is something called reviews for those approval workflows. So moving those documents through your design process, having it approved by another individual. And that's what Docs gives you at a very basic level. So I just wanted to clarify what Docs was on its own. Now, when I mentioned Bim Collaborate Pro, what that actually includes when you drop down your module is you get these additional modules. So you get design collaboration. So you get Docs where your files reside. You also get design collaboration, and you also get model coordination. So that's kind of the difference between those two. But let's say, for example, you have a Docs subscription and you decide to then, or a project requires you to purchase Bim Collaborate Pro. It actually appears then as a separate module beneath here on that specific project. So it's basically an add-on, if you think of it that way. It's not replacing your Docs entirely. It's just adding on these additional functions and modules as well. So your files will always reside in Docs, and these modules essentially just plug into your Docs files and pull the information in from them essentially. So Docs, let's assume it's a common data environment, so it allows you to store different file types, as I mentioned. But the design collaboration sitting on top of those files, what you get is this swim lane view of your project. So basically what you have are different teams that are sitting on your project. We've got an engineering team, an MEP team, and an architecture team. And we can see here we've got different symbols. So the engineering and MEP team haven't yet shared their models, but if they share their models from inside Revit, so simply from inside Revit, this toolbar will become visible when you have a Bim Collaborate Pro license. If you don't have Bim Collaborate Pro, you don't have access to this. So that's the difference that AEC Docs on its own gives. But the Bim Collaborate Pro gives you the step up to this particular toolbar. So what it allows you to do is synchronize a model from in here. So if I'm the engineer, if I've made a change to this model, for example, I can delete columns, move columns. What I can then do is sync all of these up to the cloud. And then I do something called publishing. So publishing makes that information then available to the other people in the cloud as well. So it's pulling that information from Revit and syncing it up to the cloud. So that information is then retrievable inside of Bim Collaborate Pro. So essentially what you do is you create something called packages. So here we have the architecture model was shared. So initially the architecture model was shared and we can see when it was shared. You can also find out who it was shared by as well. So that's showing me that the architecture team have actually shared two models. They shared one here on the 6th earlier today, and then they also shared a model again on the 6th as well. So this complete timeline, as you can imagine, across a project can get quite busy. So what it's doing is allowing you to manage all of that model syncing from Revit and from the other people on the project. Now, this can also be used internally. For example, we've lots of architectural firms that are using this just to collaborate between their various different staff as well. And that can also be used as part of that. You may not have engineering and MEP team. You may have team 1, team 2, team 3, or you may even have individuals as well. So that's very customizable in terms of the teams as well. You can name them accordingly, however you want. Now, all of these models that you see are actually stored in Autodesk Docs. So this model is actually being pulled in from Autodesk Docs, and it was originally pushed in from Revit as well. So just thinking of Docs as where all of your files reside. So that's just looking briefly at what model coordinate or what design collaboration does. Then with model coordination, what I can do, I can actually pull that model in, any models that reside in my Docs platform. It will give me a list of them here. What I can then do is I can perform those clash detection in the cloud. So all I have to do is just select any models from inside my project, and all of them will appear here. You can create them in separate spaces. I won't get into that, but if you've lots of models, you can segregate them by discipline as well if you want, or by user also. So what I can do is just select these two models that were synchronized from Revit. I can then look at the clash detection in that. And this is automatically clashing these for me. I don't need to choose clash detection or anything. It's loading them together. So here we have, I know this is a structural model, architectural model. And what I can actually do is just go into the clashes here, and it's actually automatically going to clash everything in that model for me. So it's clashing floors. We've got an architectural and a structural floor. So obviously we know there's going to be an issue there. Somebody has to replace or move their floor. Either the structural engineer or the architect needs to do that. But let's just click on one of these clashes. So it automatically zooms you into one of these clashes. What I can now do on this is actually create something called an issue. So I can place an issue on this. So that's just going to load up that issue in the cloud for a moment. And what I'm going to be able to do, I can actually pull this issue into Revit, but I can also pull it into Navisworks if I want as well, using that issues plugin that I mentioned. So I can, if I want, I can assign this to an individual. I could assign an individual. I could assign to myself. I'm the only person in the project, but I could assign it to the construction manager, BIM manager, if I want, for example. That can be assigned to them. And I can add a comment and say, please edit wall. So that's a clash we've detected. I'm just going to hit submit on that. So it's added a comment in there. So I can go into the activity log if I want and just see what's happened. I can see the comment was added, who was assigned to. So maybe this is me as a BIM coordinator perhaps, or maybe another designer performing this role. What I can actually do now, just briefly, whether I'm the Revit user or whether I am the, just let me see what model I'm in here. So I'm in, okay. So I'm going to go into Revit and just let me check that this will load for me. So I've just generated that issue in Autodesk Construction Cloud. It should now, it's just loaded in that issue. So what I can actually see now, I can click on this issue and it's going to bring me to that issue immediately in Revit. So that was just created in the cloud, you know, by somebody working remotely perhaps, and pulled back down into Revit. So that's using that issues plugin. And then the Revit user can then go and address that issue that they need to. They can view the comment and see who it's assigned to. And it even gives them a screenshot automatically of the clash that occurred. Now, before I finish up, so that's the Revit issues plugin, pulling that in from Autodesk Construction Cloud. What I could also do as a Navisworks user, so perhaps I'm a different user, I can also then go into Navisworks. If I want, open up those same models. So let's just see what I can open up here. So I can go into that particular project. So this is pulling again in those models. And I know it's these two models. I can open that. So that's just going to load up those models that sit in my Autodesk Docs. It's not replacing them or anything like that. It's actually opening them from inside the drive, from inside your Docs folder within your Autodesk Construction Cloud. Now, what I can go in here is actually manage issues, and similar to Revit. So it's just loading up a panel on the right hand side here. And again, it's showing me that same issue in Navisworks as well. So that's kind of a round trip workflow, you know, maybe going from architect to engineer and back again through Revit, through Autodesk Construction Cloud, using Bim Collaborate Pro, and then pulling it back down into Navisworks, perhaps as the model coordinator as well. And you're able to track those same issues. So the Bim coordinator could potentially come in here as well, and they could add comments in here if they need to. But also what they can do is they can also assign this to a different person, or they can even change the category of that particular type of clash. Maybe it's a compliance issue. And the reason you categorize it differently is purely from an analytical point of view. You can pull all of that information down into your analytical information as well. So what we can do on this, maybe they want to close this issue. So the BIM manager is going to close this issue. And what this is actually going to do, it's going to push back up that status as closed. That's been addressed. And then by right, when I refresh this, so it's going to show me any of those clashes. So what I can actually do is just go back into my home screen. So I can just go back into my home screen within Autodesk Construction Cloud. And all I'm going to do is just view that clash that was created in the Construction Cloud. And then I made a change in Navisworks to the status of that. So let me see, oh, none of my issues are there. 2 seconds. Oh, Docs. So I can go into my architecture. Oh, there we go. Sorry, they moved it from BIM 360. It's now on the left rather than on the right. And there we go. We have that issue appear in there. The status has been changed from inside Navisworks. The Revit user has potentially made this change to the wall, pushed it back up using Bim Collaborate Pro, and then they've pulled the issue has then been managed by the BIM coordinator. They've closed out that issue, and the issue no longer exists on the project. So that's essentially it for today. I appreciate that was a whistle-stop tour. I got through as much as I could in the couple of minutes. Now happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank
Just
you,
one question I have for you there. I made reference to the fact of, returning to site and returning to offices and so on, but as to what extent has cloud-based design tools like this become more common now in the workplace, in design houses? I mean, I'm assuming there's been a step change in its use.
Massively, Alan. You've definitely hit the nail on the head there. Unfortunate what's happened in the last 18 months, but as a result, people are using more cloud tools, whether it's Autodesk Construction Cloud or something else. And these tools are being used extensively by the industry in Ireland. We see it every day. These type of processes and workflows are just helping people work that bit more efficiently. But I don't think the goal is to necessarily work more efficiently. We're just trying to take the headaches out of maybe what would have been previously more manual tasks of perhaps sharing models or sharing files or capturing errors before they reach the site. This just kind of streamlines it just to make it a little easier on people actually working in the software and working on projects as well.
Are you finding that there is still companies that are working in 2D?
There definitely are. And what we see a lot of are companies that will start using something like Autodesk Docs in the AEC collection. They'll run it on a couple of projects and it eventually filters into the rest of their projects as well. So that change is happening and companies are doing both, but they're making the transition, I think, is the biggest thing to take from that.
Thank you. Interesting. Yeah. Suzanne, you're on mute.
I was only just looking to see who else was still online, just to see if they had any other questions. As Paul McSweeney is still there, but
yeah.
Sean Manley's gone.
So what are Diatec going to be speaking about at the gathering? Is that Amy? Who's presenting at the gathering, Suzanne?
For Diatec, off the top of my head, I don't know.
David had mentioned that it was you, Jonathan.
It's possibly me.
Might be used,
possibly Jonathan. Possibly David Purden. But we are still, we're still working on the topic that we're going to deliver. Be myself or David Purden anyway. We're just working on a couple of different things.
Yeah, and we don't know what day. We don't know which day that is. Which date that is.
Oh.
We did. Sorry, I have it here.
Okay. I suppose what we're trying to get, Jonathan, is a sense at the gathering of what future generations will be working on. And, I suppose there is that kind of, that vision that we're going to be creating these digital twins and that they're all going to be very smart models, which then will allow us to more efficiently perhaps build in the factory and install on site and all that good stuff. But it's just really get a sense from Diatec of what the future is going to hold, what's happening, and where the future is, what the direction.
In my experience, like definitely the changes I've seen in the industry, let's say since 2010 anyway, when kind of things were rock bottom, like remote collaboration, and not just in reference to today, I think especially what we're seeing, like large contractors, how digitized they have come in the last 2 or 3 years is phenomenal. And that personally surprised me, that contractors are really leading this on a lot of the big projects that you'd see in Ireland. And I think that's a good indication of a trend that, again, is going to continue to surprise us. If large contractors are working with a lot more cloud tools, cloud solutions to streamline their project delivery and project management, that feeds down into the supply chain, then into designers, into subcontractors. And I think that remote collaboration as a trend, I don't think anyone knows where it's exactly going to end up in another 5 years' time, but I've no doubt, there's so much momentum there in terms of what that's creating. Contractors will be, so ahead of the game in terms of how far they've come with technology, whether that's applying it to offsite construction, which I personally would love to see a lot more of, whether that's applied to prefabrication of certain elements, whether it's housing or multi-unit development, such as apartments or anything like that. even what we see in the industry at the moment, you know, like the way you'll get a truckload of bathroom pods or rooms delivered to a site, and this is happening across Ireland. They're all prefabricated in a factory. It's only a matter of scaling that to a bigger degree, you know, whether it's an individual apartment or an individual house.
Yeah.
I think that's where the industry is going, is technology is going to bring it to a lot more of benefits for prefabrication and offsite construction.
Yeah.
Just to say, Alan, their talk is at 12:30 on the Tuesday, the first day. The 21st.
Okay, perfect. Look forward to it.
And
Thanks,
the moment we have the same title in there, Jonathan, but if you're changing it, just let us know.
Okay, yeah, will do.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks a million for today. I'm sure.
Thank you.
Useful.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.